John, a night shift worker at a local factory, is used to receiving strange phone calls at odd hours. But one night, at exactly midnight, he gets a call from an unknown number that feels different. The voice on the other end is faint, but clear. "I'm trapped. Please help me." Startled, John tries to ask who it is, but the call ends abruptly. Shaken, he assumes it's a prank, but can't shake the eerie feeling it left behind. Over the next few nights, John receives the same call at midnight, always with the same message. "I'm trapped. Please help me." Desperate to figure out what's going on, he tries to trace the number but finds no record of it existing. The calls get more urgent, and the voice begins to sound familiar. It's a woman, and her pleas for help feel real, almost like she's speaking directly to him. John becomes obsessed with finding out who this mystery caller is. He talks to friends, digs into old connections, and even checks local news for any reports of missing people. But nothing seems to fit. The more he searches, the more he feels like the answer is right in front of him. One night, after another frantic midnight call, John recognizes the voice. It's his sister, who died in a car accident 5 years ago. The realization sends chills down his spine. Unable to sleep, he digs through old family photos and discovers something he had blocked out. His sister was on the phone with him during the crash, her last words begging for help as her car spun out of control. The final call comes the next night, but this time John doesn't hang up. "I'm here," he whispers, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you." The voice on the other end replies, "I just needed you to hear me." Then silence. The phone never rings again, and John is left wondering if the calls were real or just a manifestation of his own guilt. The screen fades as John sits in the dark, phone in hand, haunted, but finally at peace. Emma, a woman in her early 30s, has just moved into a new apartment in a quiet neighborhood. She's relieved by the peace, but soon notices something odd about her neighbor across the hall. The man, in his late 50s, never speaks, never seems to leave his apartment, and communicates only by leaving notes on his door. The notes vary in tone. Sometimes they simply say, "Do not disturb." Other times they read cryptically like, "Please, don't knock today." At first, Emma respects the man's privacy, thinking he might be agoraphobic. But one night, she hears disturbing noises coming from his apartment. Faint sobbing, shuffling footsteps, and what sounds like objects being moved. She grows concerned, but every time she attempts to check on him by knocking on the door or calling out, there's only silence in response. Determined to find out what's going on, Emma tries speaking to the building manager, but he brushes her off, saying the tenant always pays on time and has never been a problem. Emma becomes increasingly uneasy as the noises intensify, and she begins to suspect something sinister is happening behind those walls. One evening, after hearing a loud crash from the apartment, Emma can't take it anymore and forces her way inside. The apartment is cold and dimly lit, filled with old, dusty furniture. She calls out, but gets no answer. Then, she finds something chilling. Old newspapers with her neighbor's face on the front page, detailing his tragic death in a home invasion. 10 years ago. As Emma stares in shock at the articles, she feels a cold breeze. Turning around, she sees her neighbor, standing silent and expressionless in the doorway. His lips don't move, but she hears his voice inside her head. "I told you not to knock." The screen cuts to black as the door slams shut, leaving Emma's fate a mystery. Tom, a middle-aged mechanic struggling to make ends meet, finds an old lottery ticket tucked away in a drawer while cleaning his apartment. He doesn't remember buying it, but decides to check the numbers out of curiosity. To his amazement, the ticket matches the winning numbers of a massive jackpot from 2 years ago, money that could change his life forever. Elated, Tom races to claim his prize, but when he tries to cash in the ticket, he's told that the prize has already been claimed by someone else. Confused and frustrated, he demands an investigation, The lottery commission tells him that the ticket, while genuine, is void because it has already been used. Determined to uncover what's going on, Tom begins retracing his steps from 2 years ago. He visits old friends, checks surveillance footage from stores, and even goes through his old phone records. But nothing explains how his ticket was cashed in without his knowledge. During his investigation, Tom comes across a shocking discovery. He did cash the ticket. 2 years ago, he won the jackpot, but suffered a traumatic accident shortly afterward that wiped his memory of it. The money is locked in a trust fund that he set up in his own name, but he left specific instructions for it to remain untouched unless he remembers the event himself. Tom, faced with the eerie realization that his past self anticipated this exact scenario, is left with a choice. Either let the money remain untouched as a consequence of his forgotten past, or find a way to access it, knowing it could trigger painful memories of the accident. The screen fades as Tom stares at the untouched trust papers, unsure of what decision to make. Sarah is an ordinary young woman who recently moved into a new apartment. Everything seems perfect except for a strange occurrence every time she looks in the mirror. Her reflection lags a second behind. At first, she brushes it off as an optical illusion, but soon she realizes her reflection is doing things she hasn't done, like picking up objects she hasn't touched or smiling when she isn't. Sarah becomes obsessed with the mirror. She sets up cameras to see if she's imagining things, but the footage always shows her doing exactly what she did in real time. Still, her reflection continues to act independently when she watches it live. Desperate for answers, she investigates the history of her apartment, discovering that a previous tenant mysteriously disappeared without a trace. The more she digs, the more she begins to suspect that her reflection might be linked to something supernatural. After a particularly unnerving experience where her reflection locks her in her room from inside the mirror, she breaks down the mirror in a panic, only to reveal a hidden room behind it. Inside, she finds a journal belonging to the former tenant, who describes the exact same experiences she's having. The journal ends abruptly with the tenant writing, "My reflection. It's not me anymore." In the final moments, Sarah comes face to face with her reflection, which now stands outside of the mirror, mirroring her every move perfectly. Just as she reaches out to touch her double, the screen cuts to black. When it fades back in, Sarah's smiling in the mirror, but something is off. The reflection is now the real version, and the viewer is left to wonder if the original Sarah is trapped inside the mirror, or if she has swapped places with the malevolent doppelganger. Michael, a tech-savvy inventor, creates a watch that allows him to travel back in time for exactly 60 minutes, with only one rule: he can't return to the same moment twice. Eager to change his life, he decides to fix a terrible accident that claimed his wife's life a year ago. Using the watch, Michael carefully travels back in time to the day of the accident, preventing his wife from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But upon returning to the present, things aren't as they should be. His wife is alive, but their once loving relationship is distant and cold. Furthermore, Michael realizes that every time he uses the watch, subtle details in his life begin to change, like friends who no longer remember him, or moments from his childhood that feel off. Michael discovers that each time he changes the past, he doesn't just affect the future, he alters the very fabric of reality, causing people to lose memories or cease to exist altogether. Desperate to fix things, he attempts to go back again, but the watch won't allow him to return to the same moment twice. The more he meddles, the worse things become. Realizing he can't undo what he's done, Michael makes one last trip, this time going back to the moment he first invented the watch. In a final, desperate act, he destroys it before he ever uses it. As reality resets, Michael finds himself waking up in a world where his wife never died, but something is terribly wrong. His wife looks at him and asks, "Who are you?" He's erased himself from her life completely, and the screen fades as he struggles with the consequences of his actions. A group of people from different walks of life receives mysterious invitations to a private island, promising them a chance to correct the biggest mistake they ever made. Skeptical but intrigued, they all accept, arriving on the island with hopes of redemption. The island seems like paradise, but soon the guests are met by a strange guide who explains the rules. They will each be given one chance to go back to a moment in their past to correct their greatest regret. However, once they do, they must live with the consequences of their decision forever. No second chances. As each guest confronts their past, their new realities are shaped by their decisions, often in unexpected ways. One by one, the guests use their second chances, but things don't go as they planned. A woman who regrets not following her passion for painting instead ends up homeless. A man who regrets not stopping a petty crime finds that his new actions caused a loved one's death. The island reveals that no matter how much they try to change the past, they can never fully control the future. The final guest is about to make his decision when he realizes that the island itself is a trap, a purgatory of sorts designed to tempt people with their regrets but ultimately punish them for meddling with time. He refuses to use his second chance, understanding that living with regret is part of life. As the others fade away, trapped by their choices, he wakes up on a plane heading home, his invitation gone. But in the reflection of the window, he sees the island in the distance, knowing it will always be there, waiting for the next group of people. Thanks for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed the journey. If you loved the twists and turns, don't forget to hit the like button and share the stories with your friends. Make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss out on our next thrilling tale, because there's always a new mystery or adventure just around the corner. Until next time, keep imagining, keep exploring, and remember, nothing is ever quite what it seems.